Hey guys, Josh Carter here with One Objective Outdoors. In today's video, we're going to be talking about my top 5 fall crankbaits, so stay tuned. Alright guys, like I said at the beginning of this video, we're going to be going over my top 5 fall crankbaits. Right now, the shad, they're moving towards the backs of the creeks. They're moving onto the secondary points. They're up on the rocks and the flats, and especially if you get in the backs of those creeks, they're up there on those flats. And it's so many different options out there for crankbaits and, you know, colors and all that. So I want to try to simplify a little bit for like what I like to throw this time of year around like Smith Mountain Lake, Bugs Island, Gaston, all these lakes around Virginia and North Carolina. So a lot of these lakes have got, some of them got grass, but a lot of them got rock. They got a lot of mud banks. So these baits here are perfect for everything we're going to be talking about, especially docks, stuff like Smith Mountain Lake's loaded with docks. So a lot of these baits you can get up under there and work them and all that. So, but let's go into my number 1 fall crankbait. Actually, I have this tied on through the spring and the fall, but it does really, really well for me in the fall. And that is the Strike King 1.5. This one is the silent one. You can hear the rattle. It's just the split rings rattling, but this is a silent one. I like to take these and skip them way up under the docks. For one, they don't cost a fortune, so if you do bang the dock pretty hard and you shatter it, it's a lot easier to replace one of these than it is like a $11 or $12 bait, especially if you're on a budget. But they just work really well too. They got a lot of great action. I've caught a lot of fish, especially if the lake drops and you're able to get this way back in the back of that dock. You'll watch them come out from the shallows. You'll see a big weight coming in just to eat this thing. I mean, these, you know, they dive 3 to 6 foot depending on the line you use. So if I'm just fishing around like docks and trees and laydowns and all that stuff where these baits excel, a lot of times I'm throwing 12-pound test. You can go up to 14, but with the 1.5, I feel like the 14 doesn't give you, I'm not as accurate with the 14 or get the longer cast with the 14 as I do like a 10 or a 12, but I try to stay in that 12-pound test. And I use fluorocarbon. The reason why fluorocarbon floats back up, it helps with a lot of times too, you know, getting the baits out of the trees. Also, just you don't really need to go to that small diameter to get that maximum depth out of these, because you're just kind of bouncing off the limbs or, you know, trying to bring it up beside floating docks or around pylons or whatever, just kind of smacking it off of them. So I'll use a 12-pound fluorocarbon. It just works really well with this bait. And I mean, like I say, this is probably my number 1 that I'm always going to have tied on. Next is, oh, and really quick, that's sexy shad. So if you notice, that's a shad color. All these baits basically will be in your shad colors right now because that's what they're keyed on. So next is the 6 Sense Flat Finesse F4, and this is I think this is the 4K shad. I think this is what this color is called. I just picked it up and been starting to throw it ever since then, and it's done really well. I've caught a lot of fish off of this bait. It's a flat side. It's got that really tight wiggle, because some days that's what they want. They want that really, really tight wiggle. They don't want that wide wiggle like something like the 1.5 Strike King would put off, you know. So this has got that really tight wiggle. This is another bait that I'm going to throw on, you know, with this tight wiggle and all that. Sometimes I'm trying to get a little bit deeper. I'll go down to a 10-pound test, but I still try to throw it on 12. And I'll also go back and forth with fluorocarbon depending on what I'm fishing a lot. If I'm fishing just around a lot of rock bluffs and riprap, stuff like that, where these baits really excel, like I'm going down parallel down the bank on riprap, I'll go down to like 10-pound fluorocarbon. I can get it down just a little bit deeper on some of those riprap banks. And I mean, with the computer chip board, it just runs really good. It's got a good sound to it, as you can hear it. It's just that solid thud sound, like a tungsten weight in it or whatever. It's not overbearing with rattle. So it's another good little bait right here by 6 Sense. You can actually get this on our oneobjectivebf.com page. We have a lot of 6 Sense crankbaits on there. So also the Strike King 1.5 you can get on there as well. And these baits, these square bills here, I'm working them on a medium heavy. Medium in some cases, but most of the time that's on a medium heavy with a fast tip. and that way, because you're bringing them through brush, you're bringing it over trees, and you want to be able to horse them out of there a little bit more when they do hit it. If you go down to a medium, it's really hard to pull them out of a brush pile. So you just want to make sure that you can get them out of there, and that's why, you know, using 12-pound test, medium heavy, fast tip rod. We've moved over to the G Loomis rods and the Shimano X rods, and I say that the Shimano X rod medium heavy is a really, really good rod for cranking and all that. So I really like that rod. I think I've been really impressed since we've moved over to them, and I actually used that on one of my frogging rods too, and I'll go into a video on that showing you guys just why I like those X rods. So my next bait, now this one dives down to about 10 foot. This is something like if I'm coming over points, or I'm coming over, like, say, rock bluffs where it's a little bit deeper, or some of those really deep riprap banks, I'm going to throw this bait, and that's a Rebel Wear. Now, this is the the black back chrome sides. As you can see, this one has, I don't know if I can get the camera to adjust right, but this one has taken a beating, but I've caught a lot of fish off of these baits. Now, it's really hard to find this color right now. If you do, it costs a little bit more. I got some blanks that I'm going to try to get wrapped and painted, you know. So you can find the Rebel Wears. It's just, for some reason, they quit making it in this color. At least I can't find it no more. It's always like a white or some other kind of crazy colors, but it's never into this like a, what do you call it, like a Tennessee shad color or whatever, but it's just a chrome side black back. I changed the hooks out on these to red. These are smaller hooks, so I change them out to red just to give it a little more appearance too. I actually do that on a couple of my shad baits, but this one definitely, all of these will have a red hook up front. Doesn't matter, I don't know, I feel like it does, so that's why I do it. You know, it's, you know how we anglers are, it's a confidence thing, so we're gonna do whatever we can to feel confident throwing that bait. But this I throw on 10-pound fluorocarbon, most time like on a medium action rod, just so they can load up and I'm not horsing it or jerking it out of their mouth. I've caught a lot of fish off of this in the fall, and it does really well. I actually throw this a lot on the rivers through the summer too, but I love this bait. This bait definitely paired up with this one, with this Strike King. These are always tied on, no matter what. They're always going to be tied on and be sitting on the front deck of my boat in the fall. And this one, I've actually gone into wintertime with it. You know, you have some of those warm days where, you know, it's kind of crazy. It'll warm to like a 50, 55, 60 degree day in December, January, something like that. I'll take that and go up there on them warm banks where the riprap is, you know, they'll pull up to warm up a little bit and throw this, just because you can work it slow. It's got a good wobble to it. You don't have to work it really fast, and it's got a good small profile, because in the fall, a lot of the shad that you'll see in the backs of the creeks, they got that really, really small profile. So you're trying to match the hatch and give them something very similar, because they can be picky right now because they have so much bait fish in the back that it's really hard to convince them to get something that looks just a little bit different than what they're already chasing and honed in on. Because when they are really keyed in on that bait, it can be difficult. And you know, you go in the backs of these creeks sometimes, you're like, man, I don't know why they ain't biting. They're all over the place. There's shad everywhere. They ought to be here. That's sometimes, to me, is when it's the toughest. So I'll start looking around and kind of pulling off and going on to the secondaries, or pulling back from them where I'm not all the way in the back of the creeks with them, where they can be so picky. I'll go out to where I'll find bait fish, but it's not an abundance of them. So the next bait I like to throw is the Shad Rap. This is the SRRS, which the S stands for suspending. And this is a 7. This one dives 7 to 14, and this is in the shad color. And I've never got 14 out of it. Not saying you can't. I throw it on 10-pound fluorocarbon with a medium heavy rod, or like a medium heavy, really fast tip, and it's real flat. It's perfect bait. This is actually, I went up north to Winnipesaukee and was throwing this bait as well and catching them. It's just, this is another one of those baits you could about have on all year long. I mean, everybody throws a Shad Rap. Most people anyways throw a Shad Rap, and to me, this color right here, I can go pretty much any lake in the country and it does really well. So this is another bait that I'm going to have tied on, sitting in my rod box probably. I won't always have it on the front deck, depends on the conditions, but It's done really well for me. And a lot of times I'll change the hooks on these as well and go to a red. Another little trick you can do. So it's already got red with a chartreuse stripe on it. I don't know if I can get it. This camera, I don't want to zoom in right on it, but it's already got a red with a chartreuse stripe on it. Sometimes I'll take a chartreuse marker, depending on the water clarity, and I'll just put a little bit brighter chartreuse line down the side and just brighten that chartreuse up just a little bit more. And it seems just, help, get that, just maybe pick up a little extra bite. Also, another thing you can do too, if you don't want to change out red hooks, on most of these baits you can do it, you can get you a little red marker, and I like to, just draw a little red spot right there or somewhere on the belly right there. So when they come up, they can key in maybe on midway of this bait instead of the back where you're only getting one hook in them. I just think it's one of the things that just kind of helps out a little bit more, maybe your hookup ratio. I don't know if it's a proven deal, but it just, like I say, it's confidence to me. And it seems like I have a lot better success when I do little things like that. But this one suspends. It's a great bait that you can go, like if it's really cold, like into late fall, in December, and through the winter time when you want to crank. This is a great bait to do it because you don't have to work it really fast. You can get it down in them rocks and just let it sit for a little bit, work it a little bit, let it sit, work it a little bit, let it sit, and you can go off them like deep points and all that stuff and get it down there to those bait fish that are suspended or whatever, and this bait works really well. It's got a good little rattle to it too as well. So another bait to check out. This is my top 4 right here. Now this next bait, this doesn't resemble a shad, because the thing about, you got to remember too, they're feeding on shad, but they're also feeding up on crawfish. Crawfish is full of protein for them. I think it fills them up a lot more than it would having to go around chasing 100,000 shad or whatever, and they're not burning a lot of energy if they're sitting under a dock, or they can just kind of cruise down the bank in those warm rocks where the crawfish are coming out. And that could be a lot of this too, is when you're just bringing this by, they could be on the bank looking for those crawfish, and they see shad come by, they're going to take opportunity and eat it if they can. So my next bait is going to be the Spro rock crawler. This is the 55. This one is in green crawl, I think is what they call this one. Yeah, green crawl. And there's several, they got some really great colors out there. Now, this is, to me, is kind of comparable to like the wiggle wart, something like that. It's got a, if you can hear it or not, it's got that tungsten weight in it. It's got a good little, it's not an overbearing rattle. It's just a little bit of a click. But when they're feeding on them crawfish, if you're flipping a jig around and you're getting bites on docks with jigs and around trees and all that stuff, but when you're going in between those, you can pick up like a rock crawler and you're going down to riprap and just working this thing, or you come up on a secondary point, throw this over that secondary point and just see if you can get that extra bite. Something that a lot of people might just be throwing shad baits, swim baits, crankbaits in shad color, spinner baits, stuff like that. You can go down there and throw something just a little bit different and maybe try to get that, a little extra bite, a little bit bigger bite too, because a lot of the ones you do catch on these seem to be good quality fish. So, but this here I'm throwing on anywhere between 10 and 12, depends on how gnarly of stuff I'm getting, but it's going to be fluorocarbon. I'm trying to get it as deep as I can possibly get it. Anywhere between a medium heavy rod. It just depends on the rod. The reason why I say medium heavy so much, it depends on the rod brand that you're using. Each brand, like when we use Falcon a lot, I still use Falcon. Well, their medium is really light to me. So I'll go to a medium heavy where it feels just right for a cranking rod. You can go to some people's medium heavies and it's a little too stiff. So you got to go down to a medium. So it just depends on the rod that you're using. And the best thing to tell is it loads up enough to really get a good far cast on it. But it also is soft enough that you don't set the hook too quick, or you're just ripping the bait out of their mouth when you're trying to horse them. Because the thing about a crankbait, especially if they're jumping, is trying to keep that bait in their mouth so they ain't slinging it, because they can sling these baits just as easy. You got all these hooks and you think once you got them, but they can sling a crankbait a heck of a lot easier, it seems like, than they can like a Texas rig or a jig or something like that. So always, try to go with a little bit softer rod. And a lot of it determines too on what kind of structure you're fishing. If you're fishing something that you really got to horse them out of something, you might need to go up to a little bit stiffer rod or a little bit stiffer line or something like that so you can get them out of there. But most time 10 to 12 for me on this, just to get it down there. 12 is just a little bit better because you're digging it in the rocks it's less, you know, you get less abrasions and all that. Where 10, you can snap it off quickly if you ain't careful. So I know some people have gone up to 14, depending on if they're not trying to fish it deep, they're just trying to get it down there in that, like that 5 foot range. You can go up a little bit bigger line as well. But sometimes too big a line causes the bait to run funny too. You know, it'll kind of veer off or try to turn or whatever. So you know, you don't want to go too big line on your crankbaits either. But like I say, this is anything that's matching those crawl colors. You can go to more of a browner color if you want. This is like, say, the green crawl. This is more of like that summertime color. So I do like this, but there's so many different colors out there they got. Their phantom colors and all that look really good. So, but these are my top 5 baits. Like I say, rod selection, line selection is going to determine on the depth that you get in these baits. It's going to determine on how fast you can work these baits, and also determine how you get those fish in the boat. You know what I mean? Too heavy a line can hurt you. You're horsing them too much, all that stuff. So, but like I say, these are my top 5. These are what work for me. These are basically the ones that I'm always going to have tied on. I don't veer away with too many other different baits during the fall. Sometimes I might go to like a deep diver if I see them way down there in a creek channel that's in that 20 foot range and I'm trying to reach them. But a lot of times when I'm doing that, I'm going to go into some other techniques. I'm not going to keep changing all these different crankbaits, because I know that 9 times out of 10, most of the water that I'm going to work, it's these baits that I'm going to be throwing anyway. So anyways, I hope this video helped you. You can get the Strike King and the 6 cents on our website. I'll have a link down below in the description where you can click on those and check them out, see if that's what you're interested in. But other than that, guys, hope it helped you out. If it does, if it did, you know, comment down below, hey, I really enjoyed this, you know, and tell me what baits that you like to throw, or if there's, you know, different lines you like to do, or different tips, things you like to do to your crankbaits in the fall. Let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, hope you enjoyed it. I'll talk to you later, guys. See ya.